for Fisheries and Aquaculture Development, who is also the Member of Parliament for Awutu Senya East Constituency, Honorable Mavis Hawakumsen, and a powerful delegation from her ministry to give us updates on the outcome of the 2022 closed fishing season and announcement of the 2023 closed fishing season. But before I yield to the Honorable Minister, permit me to acknowledge some dignitaries who are with us this morning. We are joined by the Technical Advisor to the Minister at the Ministry of Fisheries and Aquaculture Development, Mr. Samuel Korte. Also with us this morning is the Administrator, National Premix Secretariat, Nana Abrakwa Asari. With us this morning is the Executive Director, Mr. Fred Enchibuedu. We also have with us the Chief Director at the Ministry, Madam Mariam W.A. Papa. We also have with us the Chief Director here at the Ministry of Information, Mrs. Morgan Esiedu. And we are joined by the Deputy Minister at the Ministry of Fisheries and Aquaculture Development, who also double as the Member of Parliament for Trobu Constituency, Honorable Moses Enim. Also joining us this morning is my boss and the Member of Parliament of Ofuasia Yoruba Constituency, Minister for Information, Honorable Kojo Nkrumah. And as I mentioned earlier, we have Honorable Mavis Hawakumsen with us. So I will now invite the Honorable Minister for her remarks, and then we will come back to you for the Q&A session.
Thank you, my sister, Auntie Fati. The Honorable Minister for Information and MP for Ofuasia Yoruba, Honorable Kojo Nkrumah, my Deputy Minister of Fisheries and Aquaculture Development, Honorable Moses Enim, who also doubles as the Trobo MP. Honorable Deputy Minister for Information, Madam Fatimatu Abubakar. Chief Director for Ministry of Fisheries and Aquaculture Development, Madam Maria. The Chief Director for Information Ministry, Executive Director of Fisheries Commission, Administrator, Premix Secretariat, Directors of Ministry of Fisheries and Aquaculture Development, and Directors of Fisheries Commission. Friends from the media, I am grateful for the opportunity to engage with you and the entire nation to brief you on the outcome of 2022 closed fishing season and to also inform you of our preparation for the 2023 edition. Let me take this opportunity to express my gratitude to the Ministry of Information and my colleague minister for granting me the platform to make this presentation. The presentation will be in two parts. My initial introductory remarks will provide an update on measures undertaken to mitigate the impact of closed fishing season to the artisanal fishers and processors, and initiatives regarding alternative livelihood schemes and measures to address illegal fishing. The second part of the presentation will provide highlights of the scientific outcomes of the 2022 closed fishing season, which will be presented by my technical officers. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, the fisheries sector supports the livelihoods of over 3 million people along the value chain in the country. And the sector contributed about 1.2% to GDP in 2022. The per capita consumption of fish in Ghana is 26 kilograms as compared to the average of 15 kilograms for West African sub-region. In 2022, the country earned over $250 million from exports of fish and fishery products. It is therefore important that we manage our fisheries resources sustainably to promote the well-being of these communities. As we are all aware, the fisheries sector is being threatened by depletion or decline of fish stocks, as shown by low catches confirmed by fishers in recent surveys. This decline in catches is as a result of many factors, including climate change, marine pollution by plastics, illegal, unregulated, and unreported fishing, excessive fishing pressure, and overfishing. Friends of the media, ladies and gentlemen, scientific working groups such as FAO, Scientific Working Group, and the Scientific and Technical Working Group of the Sustainable Fisheries Management Project, led by late Professor Jansen, have recommended implementation of drastic measures, including closed season, to ensure recovery and rebuilding of depleted fish stocks to avoid collapse of the fishery industry. Consequently, the Ministry and the Fisheries Commission has since 2016 been implementing closed fishing season as a fish stock recovery strategy with the objective of reducing overfishing and high fishing pressure, recovering over-exploited fish stocks, rebuilding depleted fish stocks, replenishing dwindling fish stocks. To ensure continuous recovery and rebuilding of depleted fish stocks, closed fishing season were implemented from 2016 to 2022, except 2020 due to COVID-19 pandemic. Ladies and gentlemen, the legal basis for implementing the closed fishing season is prescribed in Section 84 of the Fisheries Act 2002, Act 625, that empowers the Ministry and the Fisheries Commission to declare a closed fishing season. The scientific working groups have recommended that the closed season should be implemented between the months of July and September, which coincides with the spawning period of the fish stocks. This ensures that the fish spawns at least once in its lifetime before caught by the fishers. Thus, in the past 2 years, the closed season has been implemented between July and August. Friends of the media, the closed fishing season has always been implemented through strong stakeholders' engagement with leaders of fisheries associations, fishers, academia, and CSOs. This year, we met the leadership of all the fisheries associations, academia, and CSOs on the 13th of April 2023 at the Closac Hall to discuss the outcome of the 2022 close season. After thorough and frank discussions of the reports and how to better implement future close seasons, the 2023 close season was announced as follows. Canoe and inshore fishers will observe the close season from the 1st of July to 31st of July 2023. Industrial trawlers will also observe the close season from 1st July to 31st of August 2023. Let me also put on record that the tuna fleet also observe their close season 3 months in every year. To mitigate the impact of the closed fishing season on fishers and processors, the ministry, during the 2022 closed season, distributed 20,000 bags of rice and 8,333 cartons of oil to support fishers and the fish processors during the closure. I must also mention that the fishers were supported with 6,000 bundles of wire mesh, 20,000 basins, 1,710 chest freezers, and 1,150 subsidized outboard motors. As a way of reducing pressure on the fisheries resources, the ministry and its partners, including the Ghana Fisheries Recovery Activity, has launched the Alternative Livelihood Training Support for fishers, starting with 550 fishers in masonry, carpentry, dressmaking, hairdressing, electronics, and auto engineering, etc. in selected communities along the coast. This training will be scaled up to over 8,000 fishers, and after the training, trainers will be supported to set up to ensure that they can earn incomes from their trade. Furthermore, it was agreed again at our 13th April 2023 meeting that gains from implementing the closed season will be eroded if we all do not collectively combat IUU fishing activities. The ministry will therefore continue to empower the fisheries enforcement units to curb any illegal activities. Some of the new measures that the ministry has put in place to combat illegal fishing are as follows. Deployment of electronic monitoring system on 3 trawl vessels this year for the pilot phase, and it will be extended to cover all trawlers and tuna vessels by 2025. The EMS has a video recorder, a camera, and a global positioning system to recording fishing activities at sea 24/7. Implementation of ministerial directive on specification on trawl gear to reduce catch of juvenile fishes and bycatches. Directives on that trawl vessels can be at sea for not more than 30 days for any fishing expedition. I am also happy to inform you that following consultations, Côte d'Ivoire will implement their 2023 close season within the same period as Ghana. This will reduce the likelihood of fishers from Ghana migrating to fish in a neighboring country. Next year, we expect Togo, Benin, and Liberia to join. On behalf of the ministry and the Fisheries Commission, I wish to thank our gallant fishers, academia, and development partners for their continued support in implementing the closed fishing season. Thank you so much for your attention.
Honorable Minister, thank you so much for the insightful presentation. I was so excited to hear Minister mention that the decision to announce closed season and the choice of period and duration is all based on science and what the scientists and the researchers have found out to be a way to maximize how the industry, get them to perform better after the closed season. That being said, Honorable Minister also mentioned that in the year 2022, a total of about $250 million were earned in exports of fishing products. And I would only encourage all the fishers and stakeholders to listen to the minister, because if you don't listen and you don't help them to get the best out of all the research and all the investment they've made so that you can really maximize outputs, what will happen is that you go out to sea and come back empty-handed. Go out to sea and come back empty-handed. And it wouldn't be worth all the hard work and struggle. Honorable Minister also mentioned that due to this, they have tried to come up with some mitigating measures during the closed season, including distribution of relief items to fishing communities, as well as the introduction of alternative livelihood programs. Honorable Minister, thank you for the thoughtfulness and all the initiatives to ensure that whilst they are not going out to sea, whilst they are not at the shores, they will be able to provide for their families and they will be able to put food on the table. So thank you for that as well. Ladies and gentlemen, on that note, I will invite your questions. If you have any question, this is the best time to ask. So you mention your name and affiliation and then proceed to ask the questions. I can see 5 hands here, so let's start from John. So kindly send the microphone to him. Okay, so we should take that before. Okay. So we will take the second part of the presentation so that we don't do the Q&A twice. So that Honorable Minister and the technical team can take all the questions at once. So thank you so much for notifying me. So we'll go to the second part of the presentation. Kindly come.
Good morning. I stand in the protocols that my Honorable Minister used. I'm Emmanuel Kwame Dovlo, Director of Fisheries Research. Thank you. My mission here is very simple: to give you the outcome of the 2022 closed season. Outcome of the 2022 closed season. Whilst I present it, I'll try to elucidate some of the reasons why we believe that the closed season should continue in 2023. The language is highly technical, but I've attempted to make it semi-technical so that we can all understand and appreciate the scientific work. My outline are the following: importance of closed fishing season, results of socioeconomic studies, results of fish catch analysis and biological studies, and then conclusions and recommendations. No, yeah, it's small. I can't read it, so I'm reading from here. Yeah, I'm far. Okay, I have it here. Okay. Okay. Close season is a harvest. It's a harvest prohibition of fish during a defined period so that the stocks can reproduce and there will be good recruitment so that the fisheries can rebuild itself. This allows the fish to spawn at least once in their lifetime during the spawning season before fishermen can have the chance to harvest them. In the long term, there will be increase in the yield of all the species, both the small pelagics and the demersals. And what then happens is that the benefits of this increase in yield go to the fishes that are supposed to obtain it, particularly the artisanal fishes. Implementation of close season, we all know, as my minister said, is enshrined in the fisheries law. For time, I won't talk much of it. It's already been said. There are experiences from implementation of close season in so many parts of the world. And in almost all parts of the world, where fisheries are being managed, excuse me. Close season is implemented the world over in any managed fisheries. And there are examples to show. In 2013, in Philippines, we are looking at 30% increase in catch. In Senegal, we also saw it in 2017. We are looking at 35% increment. And then in Morocco and Mauritania, we are looking at 125% increments in the small pelagics. This indicates that the close season that we are implementing here is also yielding results. And these are the results that I'm here to give it to you. The studies are in two parts. We have the socioeconomic studies and we have the biological or the scientific, the hardcore science studies, the biological and the fish catch data analysis. For the socioeconomics, the survey was conducted in June, July, and August. So the June represents the pre-closure, July is the closure, and August is the post-closure. The study investigated the effect of the 2022 closure on the socioeconomic well-being of fishing households in 4 coastal regions. And it involved the artisanal fishers. And we look at 5 districts: Keta, TMA, Kia, Infantiman, Shama, and Enzima districts. The indicators that we look at were dietary diversity. For non-technical term, I'll use the word balanced diet. We also look at food poverty, which we can conveniently use the word food income, and alternative livelihoods. With respect to the dietary diversity, we use Shannon diversity to compute it. And we use a model by Greer and Torbeck for the food poverty dynamics studies. When we talk about the Shannon Diversity Index, we usually use it in community studies where we look at the species richness. So we have 2 components. We have the richness and we have the evenness. The richness talk about the numbers. So here in terms of food, we are looking at the number of individual food groups. And in terms of evenness, we are looking at the relative composition within it. When we talk about the poverty line, basically what we use was to look at the relationship between calorie consumption and then the food expenditure. That is the food poverty dynamics. As opposed to the dietary diversity, where we use the Shannon index, where we look at the evenness and the richness to compute. The primary data was collected using a questionnaire in 3 rounds in June, July, and August. Then we look at a total number of 127,508, where a third is fish traders, and the 2/3 is basically the fishermen. We administered 800 questionnaires with the fact that some of them will be non-responsive and there will be some attrition. At the end of the day, we had 772 that we analyzed. Next slide. Yeah, so here are the food groups and their components. For the studies to meet international standards, we use U.S. Department of Agriculture standards. So we have the 5 food groups there. The results basically show that the closed season generally improve balanced diet within the fishing household. There were a high proportion of households that had some level of food income after the closure. A small fraction of the fishermen and fish traders had alternative livelihoods or employer skills in other economic ventures. From those who had no alternative livelihoods, the fishermen in particular preferred factory work, masonry, carpentry, and farming. The fish traders, mostly women, prefer petty trading, dressmaking, food vending, hairdressing, soap making, and bakery. This study those recommended that seasonal closure should be accompanied by social protection for the fishing community and training program for the youth during the closure. Now let's move to the second part of the analysis where we look at the fish catch data and the biological studies. We pick sea surface temperature from Tema from January up to October. And that is a graph. Yeah, that is a graph that we have here. We took 4 sampling sites where we collected fish samples, and we also obtained data for the fish catch data analysis. These are Keta in the Volta region, Tema in Greater Accra, Elmina in Central region, and Sekendi. And for the pre-close season, we look at 3 months, April, May, June. And the post-close season, we look at August, September, and October. The species we look to are round sardinella, flat sardinella, and anchovy. And for the demersals, we look at red pandula, red mullet, and Angola dentes. Basically, we pick the weight of the fish catch, the fish length and fish weight, and the weight of the gonads. When I say gonads, I'm talking about the eggs and the sperm of fish. We cut the fish, and then we took it, then we measured the weight. Before this one. Yeah. These are some of the samples of the fish that we bought. Back. Yeah, these are the places where the sampling was done. The first one is Keta. We have enumerated a promise working on the fish sample. And then Tema, we have Julius, who's also working on fish samples. For Elmina, we have Frida, who is also working. And for Skendi, we have Patrick, who's also working. So these are the results of the fish catch data analysis. For round Sardinella, we realized that after the closure, the catch per canoe moved up from 223 to 273 kilograms, and for anchovy from 269 to 400 kilograms. Next. Here is the biological studies. So the first graph on the left is talking about the length frequency. So we realized that out of the fish that we bought and we worked on, Sekendi and Tema, the mean fish lengths were higher compared to the other station. That is shown on the graph with the 4 plots. And the one on the right is talking about the A is talking about what is called gonadosomatic index. When you talk about gonadosomatic index, basically we are looking at the weight of the gonad of the fish to the total weight of the fish. That gives idea about reproduction. So we realized that before the close season, they were low, as we can see from the graph. And after the close season, we realized that, we realized that they were high, meaning that around that time, they were spawning. Then the B, we look at the length of the fish. Here to realize that in the month of April, May, June, the lengths were not as big or higher as August, September, and October. We can see that clearly from the graph. The next one, we look at the maturity stages of the fish, and then the length at first maturity. When we say length at first maturity, we are looking at the age or the length that the fish is ready to spawn, the fish readiness to spawn. When we look at the graph on the left, we can see that when you look at the colors, red represent immature fish, and green represent mature fish. And we can clearly see that before the close season, there were a lot of immature fish. And after the close season, we can see the green bars very high. The fish that were caught, most of them were matured. Those that were not mature were few. And this is because of the close season where we protected some of them so that they can spawn before harvest can take place. And then when we look at the length at first maturity, that is the length or the size or the age that the fish is ready to spawn, we realize that for anchovy, the length is 6.7. When we look at the mean length graph, we realize that the mean length for both the 4 stations, they were higher than the length at first maturity, meaning that most of them spawned because of the close season before they were captured. We saw the same picture also with the round Sardinella. Yes, the round Sardinella is there. Here too, we look at the length frequency at the 4 stations, and then we look at the gonadosomatic index, and then we look at the length frequency. We saw the same pattern. We realized that before the close season, the gonadosomatic index were low, the lengths were low, and after the close season, they were all significantly higher. And when we talk about maturity stages and the length at first maturity, just as we saw for anchovy, we saw the same thing for round Sardinella. Here too with the green, we can clearly see the high quantity of mature fish that were harvested as a result of the close season in August, September, and October. Virtually, the small ones were not harvested, which means that the small ones will escape and they will grow big in the following recruitment season, basically. And we can see that clearly from the graph for both the anchovy and the round sardinella. Yeah, so higher percentage of mature fish were caught after the close fishing season because of the close season. The explanation of what the graphs is what is over here. Now, let's quickly look at the mean length of the fish landed. I've already explained this, but we have the length at first maturity, the mean length, and the maximum length. And as I said, the mean lengths were always higher than the length at first maturity, showing that the fish spawned before they were harvested. And the maximum length, too, we can see for them, they are all high. And when we compare the results of 2021 and 2022 close season, we can see some interesting figures. We read for round sardinella, the maximum size that fishermen captured in 2022 was 22.1, compared to 21 centimeter in 2021. For anchovy, 11.2 compared to 8 in 2021. And for flat sardinella, 25.5 compared to 21. In conclusion, the closure generally improved food income and livelihood, improved food income and balanced diet within the fishing households of the artisanal fishers. The landings of the small pelagic species, which is the reserve of the artisanal fishers, were high after the close season. Majority of the fish caught after the close season were adults and at least have spawned once in their lifetime. The mean length of the species exploited after the close season were higher than the minimum allowable landing size permitted by law. Bigger sizes of fish were caught in 2022 compared to 2021. This scientific study has revealed signs of replenishing fish stocks and increase in growth of the population of the stocks over time. This is science. The Fisheries Act mandates the Commission to use science, best scientific knowledge available to manage the fisheries. And it's science. I'm not speaking it. This is science that is speaking, revealing all this information. In recommendation, social protection for the fishing communities and training for livelihood alternatives should continue. The months of July and August must be maintained as a month for the close season, as is protect the spawning stock. The other conservation and management measures being implemented, including enforcement, need to take place concurrently so that we can have a cumulative effect. Based on our scientific findings, we recommend that the close season for the artisanal and inshore in 2023 takes place from the 1st of July to 31st of July 2023. And for the trawlers, industrial trawlers, to take place from the 1st of July to 31st August 2023. Thank you very much.
Another round of applause for Mr. Dovlo. He's done so well, and people don't even know how invaluable research is in some of these fields. They may not understand the science. But from those of us who consume kenke, I know that if you go and buy kenke with 1,000, and they tie just a small rubber for you, and if you have the benefit of counting the number of baby fishes that you are eating for 1 Ghana cedi, it's just a simple analogy to tell you that only if they had left them in the sea for maybe 2 more months, that rubber that has been tied would have been turned into a basket. More value for the fisherman and more value for the woman and everyone else within the value chain. So that is what the science is saying. Let us not eat the babies. Let's wait small. July, August, and at the end of August, you know that you are going in for better returns, for a higher percentage in terms of the number of mature fishes that you can catch. On that note, we'll take your questions. And okay, one hand, okay, same here. So we'll take the 5, one at the back, and I saw Armstrong's hand. Okay, no.
Good morning. My name is Aquaculture, Kasapa Efemenago TV. A report by the Environmental Justice Foundation reveals that Ghana is missing between $14.4 million to $23.7 million due to fishing license and fines from trawlers. Now, this is because 90% of the Ghanaian trawl vessels that operate on our seas are owned by these Chinese organizations and are fronted by Ghanaians. We want to find out if this narrative satisfies factual accuracy. How does government intend to check and correct this opacity of ownerships? And my second question goes to, there are about almost 70 trawl fishing vessels in Ghana's seawaters. That is within the exclusive economic zones, 188 maximum nautical miles. Now I want to find out what policies and measures are government putting in place to ensure that these workers on these fishing vessels are not subjected to hard labor. And my final question goes to, how does government intend to make...
Please, can we keep the questions at 2?
Okay,
your
my final
colleagues,
question, please.
There are too many hands.
How does government intend to make fishing policies on small scale? Thank you very much.
Thank you for the questions. Please, let's keep the questions brief and maximum 2 questions.
All right, thank you. My name is John Awuni, Kesben Media. My first question is updates on the Jamestown fishing harbor. How far is it? Which stage have we gotten, and when is it completing? And secondly, my second question has to do with people in the industry, the business people in the industry. They are saying that currently the import levy on fish was taken from 15 cedis to $17. And if you do the exchange rate based on 12 cedis to $1, it means it was taken from 15 cedis to 204. That's 204 Ghana cedis, and that is very high. And then still on the import duties, the first one was import levy, and this one is import duties. They are saying Ghana currently charges 40% import duty on the fishing sector, and that of Cote d'Ivoire is currently at 12. So they are alleging that there are some Lebanese companies that have relocated to Cote d'Ivoire. They send a full shipment to Cote d'Ivoire and then cut through road to Ghana. And by so doing, they've also gone further to convince Ghanaian traders in the fishing sector to be patronizing from their sister company in Cote d'Ivoire, and by so doing, depriving Ghana of some money. And she indicated that 1.2% is derived from the sector as in contribution to the GDP of the country. So what is the sector doing about that? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Please, let's keep the questions brief, okay? I want everyone to be able to ask their question.
Okay. My name is Abdul Hanan. I work with GH1 TV. Minister, I'd like to find out from you. You mentioned that Ghana earned 250 million in terms of fish export. Now, the Tuna Association of Ghana is telling us that we import about 150 million of tuna annually to this country. Doing the mathematics, do you think that we are doing enough with the figures that we have in 2022? And secondly, I'd like to find out from you, you mentioned that you are taking measures to curb illegal fishing activities and also instituting a pilot phase when it comes to monitoring activities on sea. And 4 years ago, we realized that Emmanuel ACN went missing. Till date, we don't have any accurate report on what actually happened when he went on this superfishing at sea. Could you kindly update us on that situation as well? Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Ataminsa.
Thank you. My name is Ataminsa from GNA. As the minister rightly said, Ghana received $250 million in fish export and other fish products. I want to find out the destination countries and then the kind of fish that were exported. Then two, the minister said in 2022, the ministry supplied 20,000 bags of rice and 8,000 cartons of oil to some communities. Looking at the number of people who depend on fish for livelihood, over 4 million. And so if you are supplying this amount of rice and those things.
The 4 million is the entire value chain, not fishes.
Yes.
Meaning even the kenke seller is part.
I know. But even if you are looking at even only the artisanal fishermen, they are over 1 million. And so if they are not going to fish during that period, and you are supplying these items, it's not a drop in the ocean. And what is the category of selecting the beneficiaries? Thank you.
Thank you. I saw, Lanza and then Armstrong. Okay.
Thank you very much, Madam Fati. My name is Musa Lanza with the EIB Network. My first question has to do with close season. Former President Mahama is on record somewhere early this year to say that we have a lot of industrial fishing vessels on our territorial waters, and so it's affecting artisanal fishers. And so the next government that he would form would consider banning close season for artisanal fishers and then allow only the trawlers to have the close season. What's the ministry's position on that? And secondly, I've made it a business of mine to go around the beaches to look at how we're throwing away polythene material. And at the Blue Economy Summit, one of the issues raised was how plastic waste is affecting the fish stock. What is the ministry doing in terms of collaborating with other agencies like the EPA and the Marine Police to deal with persons who litter our water bodies? Thank you very much.
Thank you for the questions. Okay. Yeah, please proceed.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable. My name is Joseph Armstrong. I work with TV3. Honorable, growing up, I remember how we used to move from Dansoman to the Kwale Lagoon area to fish, and also with the Dansoman, the Chemu Lagoon, the Gbewu Lagoon, and also somewhere in Jatakpo. We used to fish a lot from the rivers and lagoons that we can see in part of Accra. Unfortunately, go to the Kwale Lagoon area now, that place is a dead zone. And these are places that fisher folks also used to catch fish, reducing the stress and pressure they put on the sea. So my question is, if you are talking about alternative livelihood for fisher folks during close season, how about factoring in how to protect some of these lagoons and river bodies in parts of the capital and other parts of the region so that we can get some fish from these rivers as well? I want to ask a second question also on the use of unapproved nets, most part of our landing beaches. Honorable, if you go to Keita now, you see almost every landing beach have the use of monofilament nets in their boat, and they do it with a lot of pride, without fear or favor, because they say that as long as the trawling vessels are allowed to fish within their river bodies, they will also use the monofilament net, because that's the only way they can catch the little fish that has been left for them. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the question. We'll take the last one. Oh, I'm seeing more hands, but because of time. Okay, so we'll take the last one so that we take only this round, and Minister will get the benefit of responding to all of you at once.
Pacho Midindi Bernard, Arthur, from United Television, UTV. My concern here, alternative livelihood. Honorable Etachi, and I'm say close season baby and I know omo apofofo no omo concern. Nti mpese me hu say nhyehyɛ ben ye die gu to be able to sustain that, just about the sustainability across the country. Thank you.
Thank you. Nana.
Yes, my name is Nana Poku from Daily Searchlight. Hello, Minister. I have a question on inland fishing. There was a time in Ghana here we were fishing from the canoes, from the lagoons, from the lakes, from the river bodies. But these days, fishing in there has also reduced or gone down drastically. What are the reasons? And what are we doing as it were to resuscitate some of these things? And then, if we look around, there are some species of fish we don't see anymore on the market. For instance, I hardly see redfish. That is my delicacy. I don't see them anymore. I don't know what's happening. Amani and the rest. So what is accounting for that? Is this the same of those illegal practices, or just because you are not taking very good care of these species of fish? And then my last question, how much of fish in totality do we import as a country? And how are we going to reduce it so that we can save some amount from a little foreign exchange? Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll take the lady at the last hand. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
My name is Emilia Enin Abe. I write for the Daily Graphic. Minister, my question is tied to that of Bernard and Mr. Arthur from GNA. This year, what's as the social intervention, what's different? What are we going to see for the fisher folks? How different will that be compared to the previous years? And also, your minister mentioned that the ministry is going to empower the enforcement units to help curb illegal fishing. What kind of empowerment is the enforcement unit going to see, and what differently are they going to do? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. The last question, please.
Sorry. My name is Prosper Agbenega from Ghanaian Observer. I want to know if the ministry is aware of the increased smuggling of fish from neighboring countries, especially Ivory Coast, due to increase in levies and duties.
Okay, it's been asked already. Okay, so I take that to be the last question. I will invite Honorable Minister for her responses. Yes.
Thank you, my sister, Deputy Minister for Information, Auntie Fati. I didn't know I'll be bombarded with such many questions. I would have eaten some fufu or banku before coming in, but I will try my best. I will start from the last end, which is about the enforcement units, empowering them. Yes, we have the enforcement units, and they are already empowered, but we want to intensify it. How do we intensify it? The ministry doesn't have, patrol boats. So we are not able to patrol and combat the illegal activities on the sea. But we have our enforcement units and the officers along the coast who are fighting these illegal activities. And so for us to enforce it, we are working with the Navy. And so what we can do is to maybe fuel, in collaboration with the military or the Navy, will fuel their vessels to be able to patrol on the sea to fight these illegal activities. Because of that, government has given us, cabinet has given approval for us to purchase research vessel and patrol boats to be able to work effectively. But for the meantime, we are working with the Navy to get their patrol boats to fight the illegal activities. The next one is, how much fish do we import? About $150 million. About $150 million of fish is what we import in the country. And that is why we are encouraging people to take up this aquaculture farming, so that we can bridge the gap of supply and demand. We are working seriously. Last week, Thursday, His Excellency the President commissioned the state-of-the-art aquaculture farming center at Amahia, so that we'll be able to produce more fish to bridge the gap for demand and supply in the country. The reasons for the extraction of some fish in Ghana now. I mean, when my brother was asking the question, he had answered before asking the question. We talked about excessive pressure on the sea. We talked about the number of people who are now doing fishing activities. Apart from that, our bad ways of living, pollution of the environment. I will tie it to the person who asked about the pollution when I get there. But the thing is, we see plastic waste in our sea. This fish goes in for it, it chokes them and it kills them in the water. You don't even see it. We pollute the air, the sea, thinking that we are trying to hide behind something. The last time I was saying that when it rains, you see that is where people dispose of their waste into the gutters. Then it moves directly into the sea. And if it's not going into the sea, the lagoons are there. It goes to the lagoon. So it kills the species there. And when we say we should stop polluting the environment, throwing waste anyhow, people think it is the duty of government. It's the duty of all of us. Who is the government? You are the government. I'm the government. What are we doing to stop these unnecessary activities that pollute the environment, that pollute the sea? Have you thought of the fish that you eat from the sea? Have you thought of the fish that you eat from the inland, the water? We do all these illegal activities. It's part of the illegal activities. Not only galamsey is illegal. Throwing waste into the sea is also illegal activity. So my brother, as I earlier mentioned, you even answered the question before you asked. And that is the issue. Alternative livelihoods during close season and how sustainable it is. It is government's priority to support the fishers. The fishers are supposed to even pay tax. I've said it and I'll mention it here again. But they are not paying for any tax. But they enjoy a lot from government. Government gives them premixed fuel on subsidy. Government gives them outboard motors on subsidy. And so when we are doing closed season and government has decided to also give, he is trying to support them because initially they didn't understand the reason why we should be doing the closed season. Not that they didn't understand. They knew that the closed season is one of the measures that we can rebuild the stocks. And that is why those days you hear our chiefs in the environment say, and the community will say, we don't go for fishing on Tuesdays. It was a way of conserving some of the species during that time. And we didn't know. But now they have stopped all this Tuesday fishing that they don't go for. They now go for fishing on Tuesdays. But when we brought in the closed season, they thought, if we are not on sea, what will we be doing? If we are not fishing, how do we take care of our family? Yes, the alternative we are giving them is not enough. We cannot cover all the numbers. My sister corrected the questioner that about 4 million people along the value chain. Yes, but we are not attending to all the people in the value chain. Because if you're selling kenke and there is no fish at that time, you can sell kenke with sardine. There is tilapia. We have catfish. That's why we are encouraging, again, for this fish farming, so that we will not always solidly depend on the marine fish. Unapproved nets. And my brother said they do it with pride. Not when they see how I come see. When they see me, they hide those nets. Because they know. And even the fisheries law is against it. Because of that, the fisheries ministry, last year, or was it this year? We started last year. We gave them some fishing nets, the approved ones, so we could retrieve the unapproved one. It's a way to encourage them. Government cannot supply the approved fishing net to all the fishermen. But those that will get will encourage those who will not get, so that they can also go to the market to buy. And it's also another measure we are taking to enforce the law, to make sure that when we get you with monofilament or unapproved fishing nets, you are in trouble. I started it last year. I went to the Western region, and we went to New Takrady. We were about to arrest them, and they came on their knees begging me. Then I allowed them. But unfortunately, after the close season, because of the issue of premise fuel, we couldn't go on them. And so this year, we are going to make sure that after the close season, all of them will use the right fishing net to do their fishing. We are also embossing the canoes. So if your canoe has its number plate on it, and you have monofilament in it, or you are doing fishing with unapproved fishing nets, that is where we also use it to refuse you premise fuel to go for fishing. Because if you give you the premise fuel, which net are you going to use to do the fishing? It's the monofilament, which will not allow you. So when you change, then we can start giving you the premise fuel. And you see these fishers, sometimes, they are so stubborn. So, look, during the close season, when they are not even supposed to go, around Axim area, you see these people hiding somewhere in the bush, but the enforcement unit will go for them. They are not supposed to do light fishing. It's one of the illegal activities. You see them hiding generators in the bush, far, far, far on the sea. Or somebody will meet them along the way with the, generator in the canoe. Then they will take it and go for the fishing. But we are not able to chase them on the sea, as I mentioned earlier, because we don't have the patrol boats. But I know God will provide us with the patrol boats, and we'll be able to patrol on the sea and combat all these activities. So with the use of monofilament by fishers, we are trying to change the fishing nets, and we are not going to allow them to use it. We will use the law to make sure that they use the right fishing net to do fishing. And as my brother said, Keta, and some areas we don't have the lagoon is now a dead one. I've responded to that. And I believe that you advise those around the lagoons, the Keta one, the Kwale, and others, that they should start respecting the lagoons. If they respect it by not throwing in waste materials in it, the fish, the lagoons will produce the fish for us to enjoy them. I didn't get this question well. Okay, it's also about the lagoon issue. If we can work on it so that it will be part of the alternative livelihood for them. Yeah. Fishing infractions and the number of vessels on our sea. When I took office as a minister, I realized that there were some infractions and the fishers were not paying. Immediately we finished with the close season in 2021. I told them it was one of the measures I'll use to get my money. So if you come for your license and you have infraction, you'll have to go and pay before you are given a license. So we're able to retrieve that of the 2018-2019. And that of the 2020, as we speak, 2020, 2021, we have started collecting them. So if they say government is losing, it is true. We used to lose a lot of money. But now, by God's grace, we are fighting back to make sure that, not necessarily collecting the money, but we are also saying that if you have multiple infractions, then be sure that your vessel will be taken away. I'll just join these two questions. The number of canoes or vessels on our seas. Yes. When I took office, we had about 74, 76 trawlers on the sea. Fortunately, about 14 have left because they couldn't stand the pressure from me. 14 have left. We are still working on the rest. And as I mentioned, if you have multiple infraction, you are just going to leave the place immediately. We'll retrieve our license. Because if you think you can continue paying, we cannot also allow you to go and destroy the sea and come and pay us. Yes, we need money, but that's not the kind of money we need. If we have more fish, we rebuild the stock there, we'll get money more than what we are taking from you. So if you have multiple infractions, the only and last thing we can do is to make sure that you leave the system. And so very soon you hear of some of the vessels that are going to, their licenses will be retrieved or deny them of their fishing licenses. Jamestown Fishing Harbour, how far? Jamestown Fishing Harbour is between these two ministries, Fisheries and Transport. Basically, Transport is fully in charge. And I am sure it's almost completed, if not about 80 to 90%, because my colleague minister mentioned to me that very soon we'll be commissioning that one too. After the commissioning of that of the Elmina, that of the Jamestown will be the next one to be commissioned. So we are almost completed. Import levy on fish used to be 15 Ghana cedis. Now, it's about 204 Ghana cedi. My brother, I'm very much aware of this situation. I'm discussing it with the finance minister. And so I believe we will resolve it. In fact, not only with the finance minister, I've also reported to cabinet. So cabinet has directed that the finance minister should work with me and the industry to see how best we can resolve this issue. It's a big problem, especially with the importers. Well, when they import and the taxes are so much on it, definitely we, the consumers, will be paying. And government will not also be happy to see consumers suffering. So we are working at it, and very soon we'll resolve it. Yeah, so if the 40% of imports taxes on fish sector, like I said, is something we are working on. So we'll surely get to the end. 150 million tuna importation. I'm not sure we import tuna in Ghana. We rather export tuna. So maybe the questioner did not get the question very well. We don't import tuna. We rather export tuna. But we import other fish products, or maybe the other fish species. And I'm telling you this on authority, that it is the tuna that the country also processes and exports. To also tie it with the questioner who asks, I don't know whether it's the same person, that where do we do our exports of the fishery products? To Europe and other countries. But basically, Europe is where we do much of our exportation. And that is why the EU is on us, giving us the yellow card, the warning, to tell us that if we don't stop with our illegal activities, they will stop buying those fish products from us. And we are working seriously to make sure that all these illegal activities stop. I remember, Mr. Kote, I started for Korea, was it 2012 or 2013? 2013. Yeah, the first yellow card. And unfortunately, Ghana had exported, or the exporters had exported tuna to the Europe, and they returned everything back to Ghana. It was a huge blow. So we don't want to experience that again. But we normally export our fish products to Europe. That's our bigger or the biggest market. About IUU, I've mentioned here that we are putting in so many measures to make sure that the illegal activities stop. One is the gear directives given to the trawlers. Another one is the trawl days. You are not supposed to fish more than 30 days. Another one is no transshipment on the sea. And so if we give you the trawl, the gear specification, it's basically forcing you not to go in for the small pelagics because they are not for you as a trawler or industrial. So these are some of the things we are doing to cap the IUU. We are also, about Emmanuel Asians missing. I think he's still under investigation. We invite the investigator to give me much information on this. As at the last time, they were still not concluded with the investigation. So I will call the investigator again to hear how far, and I'll get back to the media. Our neighboring countries, the tax over there is low, and so the fish importers are using their ports. As I've mentioned, we are working on, together with the finance minister, to see how best we can resolve this issue. I think I've responded to the relief items, the number of items that we are giving. As I said, we are not even supposed to have given those things, but we think we just have to give them some support. And we cannot cover all the fishes. We cannot cover all of them. How different will this year be from previous years of our empowerment? Giving out 20,000 bags of rice. That is the 5x5. 20,000. So that 20,000 multiplied by 5. 20,000. Is it 25 or 5? Because 25 kilos. We have 5 in it. Multiply 100,000. We are not giving full back to them. Because basically, when you look at the number of days that we do the close season, that's why maybe the fishers are not complaining. It's just 2 weeks. Because in the month, I'm told they fish for 2 weeks. And then the second week, they are not able to fish because when the moon is up, the light reflects on the water. And so the fish do not come out for them to be caught. And it takes them 2 weeks. So basically, it's just 2 weeks. And if government is giving you 5 kilos of rice for 2 weeks, a bottle of oil, wire mesh, and basins and other things, government is doing a lot. Government is doing a lot. In the midst of all our financial crisis, government is still taking care of the fishers. And I think that is the best government can do. Akufo-Addo government, Ofechon. My brother from Atinka. Is it Atinka? No. GH1. I didn't want to respond to the former president. You see, you quite remember the former president ever said that Ghanaians easily forget. Do you remember that? Ghana for yencheni every fear there. So the platform he was and made mention of that he will cancel the closed season for the artisanal. When I heard it, I laughed over it because onimni awoka ebia wonimusu washeda for political gains. But that is not the right thing. You see, it was under his watch, under former president John Dramani Mahama's watch, that we were given the yellow card. Okay? And we were stopped not to export fish products outside this country. But because we have shown commitment, we have not been stopped not to export. We are still exporting. And he was the president of the country. Was he able to even stop the trawlers from doing the cycle? He had ministers there. Was he not the minister and the president of the country when they were doing cycle there? So if you allow the trawlers to go and fish what the artisanal people are supposed to fish, and then you say you not allow the artisanal people to do closed season, whether they do closed season or not, they have no fish. You have no money. If you have no money to go and do transshipment, on the sea. Then it means you cannot be a fisherman at Elmina. You cannot be a fisherman at Sekendi because you have no money to go and do transshipment. It takes His Excellency the President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, through Mavis Hawa-Kumsing, to stop cycle in this country. And so, no more transshipment or cycle. So if the artisanals even observe the close season, after the 2 weeks, when they go, they have bumper harvest. And so they are not worried. They are even calling for the close season because after the close season, I mean, the scientific report, you heard it. And we hear in this country, when after the close season, the bumper harvest that we have, through this close season, it has started again. The airbuy has started. It's in the market. It's on the market all over. Those species that we used not to get about 5 years ago, last year we started getting them. And so gradually we are rebuilding the sea again. The depleted stock, we are rebuilding it. And so if he says he will not impose close season on artisanal, and it's a law. It's a law. In fact, we are also with international organizations. And so the law bans you to do it. In my earlier presentation, I made mention that the close season started in 2016. But because he was reluctant, the minister could not enforce it. Because he was reluctant for them to implement it well. Maybe the way His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo is giving them the relief items, he couldn't have afforded giving it to them. And so he couldn't enforce the close season. But His Excellency the President says he would enforce it through Hawa-Kumsing and still give them relief items. I think I've answered the plastic waste. And which one is the last one? Have I answered everything? Mumbo and Semame.
Honorable Minister, you've been so inspiring. I was just sitting there enjoying your presentation and how versed and how rounded you are in the field, knowing everything that is going on in every corner throughout the value chain. So thank you so much for the insights, and I believe we should get to do this again after the close season so that we can come and share the results with Ghanaians for them to see how beneficial the whole exercise has been to the country. So on behalf of my Minister, Chief Director, and our team here, we thank you so much for attending upon invitation. And thanks to Honorable Deputy Minister and the entire team for accompanying you. We also thank GTV and all other media houses for picking this feed live. And once again to the press, we can only count on you to send the good news out there and sell the story to Ghanaians. Thank you so much for joining us. Good afternoon.